Welcome back to another round of Respect the Process. I am Kelly Hunter, and I am joined by the voice of Alabama athletics, Chris Stewart.
Yes,
had a
ma'am.
nice weekend of rest.
It was very nice. Watched a ton of college football, saw how the other half lives,
Yeah.
and really liked it.
It's nice.
It was
You can
fun.
see how Nick Saban found the appeal to that after.
Can indeed.
I know, but you know what?
I can.
Everything else makes it worth it.
Yeah.
And we had our first college football playoff rankings come out.
Yeah, sure did.
And I don't know, your thoughts on Alabama, first of all, moving up to number 11. A couple things had to happen this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama moves up to number 11 and seemingly would be in, if we did it today, the final 12.
Yeah. I think it's pretty fair. I think it's pretty accurate. And as you see things right there, boy,
Second to last in.
Bama versus Texas.
In Austin.
In
yeah.
Austin.
Not doing any favors, but hey,
get it done. You go to
the hole you dug yourself.
I started to say go to Coral Gables. That's not true.
No,
They would actually
you'll go to one of the sites.
One of the sites, and that's even better. Look,
4 SEC teams in. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
4 SEC teams in, 4 Big Ten. You got Miami representing the ACC, which Clemson losing last week kind of helped manipulate a few others. You got Notre Dame, which whatever they are. 1 Big 12, BYU, and 1 Group of 5 with Boise State.
Would you rather be an Ohio State spot? Of course. Would you prefer to be in BYU or Miami's spot? Absolutely. But give me that, and I'll take my chances. Give me Texas, a game in Austin, Texas, easy? Of course not. But put me in, and let's just see from there. But the problem is, Saturday will go a long way towards determining whether you're in or not. It's not a play-in game, but it's also, I'll tell you what it is. It's a prime example to me of why we don't need more than the 12.
Well, you look at that. Okay, so the next 5 after the first 12, you've got 3 SEC teams of the next 5. You have SMU sitting there at number 13, A&M at 14, LSU 15, Ole Miss 16, and then Iowa State 17.
Yeah.
So you got 3 more SEC teams knocking on the door right behind you.
You do. And look, I think it's fair. And then you got another one down at 24 in
Mizzou.
In Mizzou, a 2-loss team as well. So obviously the league's well represented. LSU climbs just outside the top. Yeah, obviously, it's what happens in front of you.
Yeah.
It's too early to get too up in arms about this. If I'm Pittsburgh and I'm 1 loss, am I upset? Yeah. If I'm Washington
Army and I'm undefeated.
State, yeah, and your Army, you're undefeated. You're exactly right. But I think you got a chance to play your way into consideration. Still, if you're an undefeated Army, I think you've got your chance to play your way
They've got
into
Notre Dame.
it. Certainly, if you're the SEC, probably anywhere down all the way to number 20. Washington State's got to get some help, but I think you can still play your way in of those teams that are there. Is it likely for any of them outside of Iowa State, Pitt?
Again,
after Ole Miss, no.
You no longer control your own destiny.
You don't.
And
here's the interesting thing. Alabama doesn't control its own destiny in terms of the SEC, but can still control everything in terms of the national championship, because common sense tells you beat LSU, you're not gonna fall any.
No. Boy, things were interesting, though, in the first half of that Georgia-Florida game, after we talked about last week, if Georgia were to somehow find themselves with that second loss.
Yeah.
Things get real interesting.
Good.
But, none of that matters, obviously, if they don't take care of business this weekend. We had talked that the players have said that this is now a 1-game season.
Sure.
And obviously the next one up is the biggest, but this is a big game. Going down to Death Valley, 6:30 kickoff? Is it 6:30?
Correct.
6:30 kickoff on ABC Saturday night. Interesting thing, during the Saban era, the road team has typically been the team that gets the favor. on in these numbers because let's see, the winner of this game made the SEC championship 12 times, and only twice did neither of those teams win the national championship. But the road team has dominated this series. Alabama's only 9-12 in games in Alabama on that one. But anyway.
Say that one more time. Okay. Alabama's what?
Okay. Since 1981.
Since 81.
Alabama's only 9-12 in games in Alabama, while LSU's just 4-16 when playing in Baton Rouge.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
One of the problems, if we look back at the Tennessee game, was people felt that a lot of the chaos possibly affected the coaches, therefore affecting the players.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, having been to Baton Rouge, that alone is kind of chaos. Mm-hmm. Then you add the element of the night game. Mm-hmm. You add the crowd noise. You add the concern that, okay, are we going to be penalized on the snap because of the noise, that we're not getting things done right? I would have to think that one of the priorities this week has to be eliminating chaos.
No doubt. And don't leave out, you could have the potential for very bad weather.
Yes. I was waiting for Mother Nature to kind of...
Yeah. And again, it may be nothing. It may be rain. We know it could be nothing. But the likelihood of at least having...
A lot of those folks could use a bath anyways, so let's just...
That would be addressed to Kelly Hunter. But it is I think, a very interesting deal when you throw weather in the mix as well, because I don't remember that being an issue in a long time down there.
No. I mean, obviously...
it's normally heat.
We talked, last year it was the South Florida game that was just the deluge that y'all had to sit through. So that was really one of the last weather games.
Yeah, that's true. And we had one at Mizzou when Eddie Lacy was running back, and we had a weather delay in that one, and it was a mess. But overall, I don't remember one there in Baton Rouge. There's a lot that can add to the chaos. Who's going to manage it the best? But frankly, that's always the case. Whatever the chaos may be, who's going to handle it? And can you create more for the other side than they create for you? I think it's really big, and I got asked this on a radio show earlier today. I think it's really big that Alabama played as well as it did in the last ball game. It wasn't perfect against Missouri, but getting to go into a bye week with some confidence. You played great on defense. Yeah. You're improving, and you got better there. Offensively, 34 on a pretty solid Mizzou defense. And in the big part, there were moments it looked like an Alabama run game. Talking about where we line up and run over. I saw Justice Haynes at the basketball game actually on Monday night, and told him, I said, man, that sure was a fun run to call, because when you see a guy lower his head, lower his body, and just get lower than the DB, who was trying desperately to get low because he knew he wasn't going to be able to hit him straight up, and it turned out he couldn't get lower than him and make the hit. So it was fun to see Alabama run the football with authority. Some long runs are a big part of what made the yardage between pass, run more balanced. But regardless of how you get there, you got there, and that's nice to see. But it's got to be consistent for this offense to be all that they're capable of.
Well, and when you look at LSU's defense, that's one area they have shown vulnerability is against the run. And if I'm Justice and Jam and Jalen's mom, I might get the camera out, because hope that this weekend
it's the one
that's going to be the priority. DeBoer has a stable of running backs, and just to name two, and then of course our quarterback. He who controls the run, particularly in poor weather, is going to control this game control the tempo.
No doubt.
And we saw LSU have difficulty with Marcel Reed. Obviously, they didn't game plan for him when they played Texas A&M. But a mobile quarterback did, create some problems. And you hope that, again, the confidence carries over from this past week, a week or so ago from Mizzou.
The confidence, but also I think the week to rest up, heal up
Yeah.
as best you can this time of year. But I think it'll be, the last time Alabama had time to rest and heal, they looked really good for the first 30 minutes of a ball game.
That's true.
That would be Georgia, and that would have been really, really special.
When you look at things, the third one that I really think, Alabama's defense, they're going to have to get to Nussmeier.
Yeah.
They can't let him sit back there in the pocket,
Right.
get comfortable. And
rattle the
weather,
cage.
again, if we're going to use the element of weather, that would be another thing that would help them. But, when he gets comfortable back there, over 8 games, throwing 20 TDs, averages 328 yards a game, and he's got some nice receivers back there too.
They always do. They've always got guys.
And that's one thing. I mean, when you get
talent.
Alabama and LSU together, you're always going to get some of the best athletes in the nation.
Yeah, you are. There's a reason they've been where they are and consistently among the best in the country. LSU not as consistently. Unlike Alabama, they have a couple of years that they would just like to erase completely from the last 15 plus. And then they turn around, find themselves in a national championship game, it seems, the next year or 2 years later. And it can rise and fall very quickly there in Baton Rouge. But most of the time, they're good, bordering on great. And I think this is another team that's capable of great, but leans more towards good or average. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll see from this average at best.
Do you like going to games down there? I always enjoyed it because I would eat my weight in bread pudding like I was an inmate on death row. Like I would just sit up there and go back and forth with the bread pudding in the press box.
Here's the thing. Yes, it's normally driving, and it's not the. Oh, I know. It's a long drive, and for whatever reason, Sunday's a long drive, and it's awful trying to get out of there. No matter how late it is, you're trying to get out. And I know no stadiums are easy, but man, that one just always seems to be forever to get back to wherever it is you're trying to go. So that part's not fun. Just from a football standpoint, though, great environment. You hear, I always have said when they start playing Hold That Tiger, you better look out because that tiger's usually already got hold of you. It's special. But here's the weird thing. I have been there. I was telling this earlier today, too.
I'm not getting fresh
I
stuff.
have only no, but
Save
it's
the good stuff for this show. Okay, come
but
on.
it is if you tell it better.
Yeah, okay.
Then it becomes better. I had completely forgotten this part of it, but what did you say the Alabama record is down there since 19? It's like 4 wins is all that LSU has had during that time.
Okay.
I'd love to see what it is since 1998. Okay. And here's why I say 1998.
I was going to say, I've got the Saban era. The winner of this game made the SEC championship 12 times.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and look before kickoff and find out what the record is for Alabama in that stadium in the last 20 years.
Okay.
Because not only have I been a part of a broadcast for a ton of Alabama wins in that stadium, and maybe, man, I'm telling you, I don't think I've broadcast more than 2 losses down there. And that includes when I was doing the sidelines for UAB on television. Watson Brown as the head coach, Josh Booty as the LSU quarterback, Nick Saban as the first-year head coach of the Tigers. Tie ball game, final 3 minutes, whatever it was, and Josh Booty checks off to a play that is not in the LSU playbook. And he throws a pass. He's throwing a hitch, or so he thinks, to the LSU receiver, and the only guy standing there is the UAB defensive back. UAB runs the clock down, and I think it was Rhett Gallego kicks a game-winning field goal on the final play.
Were you down there in '99 when it was Andrew Zhao when they scored? I was there too. That was a crazy
I was there,
one
and
too.
Andrew, God love him, he underthrew 2 passes that get tipped basically into. I think one of them was to Sean, and the other was Kevin Jackson.
Yep.
And that was one that LSU should have won. That was Mike DuBose, and LSU should have won that
Quincy
game.
Jackson?
Quincy Jackson.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
Kevin was before that.
I'm
glad you
I was
corrected me.
like, I almost was like, no, it's
you're-
Quincy Jones,
you're-
Kelly. No, it's Quincy Jackson.
No, combined, we had it.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Quincy was number 7.
Yes, you're 100%
And
right.
because in postgame, he was talking us through. And, TV is a visual media,
I've heard.
obviously. And he was talking us through, and he goes, and I saw it, and I caught it right between my 7. And you're like, that would have sounded better if you had
17.
2 numbers, but you caught it right between my 7.
Yes.
So that's how I specifically remember that play.
Caught it between the 7.
Yep. And
No,
Sean Alexander said that was going to be one of the instant Bama's greatest games right there.
I think it was. I mean, the comeback on that was pretty amazing because LSU fans thought they had it won. Here's another one for you as we go to story time with Uncle Chris.
Sorry.
1999. Mm-hmm. I was there.
Yeah.
There in Baton Rouge. I was at Tiger Stadium. Broadcast the game with David Crane on tape delay television for Rest Its Soul, ACN Sports. Mm-hmm. But we were not inside the stadium to broadcast the game.
Were you not allowed?
They
or
did
they
not
didn't
have space.
Oh,
this was
yeah.
back when these replay broadcasts were new.
Mm-hmm. Because the game was
Nobody
had a DVR at the time.
That's right. But it was new, and the schools were kind of like, but nobody's going to watch a replay of the ball game. But sure, you can do it. And, of course, everybody was. Mm-hmm. I mean, ESPN's – I wonder how much of ESPN's programming now are replays. I'm talking about on their whole platform. Yeah. What percentage of their broadcasts, including SEC Network –
if you're like me flipping around, you're like, oh,
replays,
Yankees.
Nothing is live. Everything's, and it's a second run. But back then, the replay of a game was a new concept. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have space for us, they said in the press box. So David and I were set up.
Y'all should have had my seat. I was camped out at the buffet, so y'all could have taken mine.
ACN had it set up, and we had a card table outside the production truck.
I love that it was a card table.
We had 3, as I recall, we had 3 or 4 monitors. You had the clean feed, as it was called.
With no graphics.
Yeah, the clean feed of the camera at 135, one at the other 35-yard line. The camera wells and the high 35s on the 2. You had an end zone view.
Okay.
And we had the program feed, which is what you at home are watching as you watch the broadcast.
That's right on the high 50 right there. Okay,
so you're seeing the or it could be the cutaway to the sidelines or anything, whatever it happens to be. But we had those, and that's how we called the game. We went inside and did the in the end zone pregame. We taped a pregame stand up. We went outside, called the first half. At halftime, we went back inside to do a halftime stand up.
Yep.
We went back outside. And as an Alabama guy, it was glorious to watch all of the LSU fans leaving the stadium that day, filing out going, how did we lose again? Because remember, at that time, 1969 was the last time they had won against Alabama in Tiger Stadium.
Yep.
So to see that extend beyond the 30-year number was pretty bizarre. So I've seen things you didn't think you'd happen.
Weird things
I've seen
happen
games
down there.
outside, and I've seen Nick Saban lose to UAB.
Weird thing. I mean, for some reason I always remember field goals bouncing off uprights too. But being down there between Auburn and Alabama,
they
weird
had some
things.
crazy ones too.
Okay, so we've got that coming up Saturday. But before we get out of here, we also have basketball because a quick shout out to the number 2 Tide. A nice 110-54 win over UNC Asheville. Coach Oates was able to really spread some time out amongst a lot of guys. You had Aiden Holloway and Jaron Stevenson leading all scorers with 39. And please tell me that you have given him Chrysler LeBaron. Is it Phylon or Phylon?
I haven't said it's Phylon.
Because
I haven't
it should
said
be Chrysler LeBaron. Phylon. He had 38 points.
Yes. He is really good. I like that. I haven't used that, but
Most
LeBaron
notably,
is good.
No one fouled out.
Very good point.
No one fouled
it
out.
was nowhere as ugly as the
first couple from last
Foul
year.
Fest. Well, in the Foul Fest against Memphis in the exhibition game. So
because I get it, but
it was all over they were up and down. And here's the amazing thing: only 18 attempted 3-pointers from Alabama in that game. It's not uncommon to see 18 made.
Oh yeah, I was going to say I think
three-pointers,
Sears was 3 or 4 maybe,
but only 18 total attempts, which says in Nate Oates' system they're either getting to the rim or they're getting to the free throw line.
Yeah,
and they did get to the free throw line a bunch in the first half. I think they did a little bit in the second, but man, they got a ton of shots at the rim. They were protecting the rim. Clifford Omori was every bit of a fan favorite that I expected him to be.
Was it a good turnout?
Oh, it was great. It was probably the biggest opening night crowd that Alabama men's basketball has had.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Did you get
and I'm
your ring?
talking legitimate bodies. I did get the ring, by the way, and I forgot to bring it.
Didn't wear it, but that's okay.
No.
Probably talked about that on an earlier show.
If I wore it, thanks. You're a little jealous over there. Cheating on you with other platforms.
That's kind of what it feels like. But.
If I had the ring on any length of time, I'd have to have my arm in a sling to hold it.
Start doing
It's a big old beautiful ring that I'll try to remember.
One has when you have a successful basketball
team.
It's
a good problem. But it was a really special night. Great having that many people there, especially 8:00 tip on a Monday.
Yeah,
it was not ideal from that standpoint, but a great crowd, and I think they saw what they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And that was the talent being as good as advertised, the style of play, the aggressiveness, the talent, the everything. It's going to be a very I think it's going to be a very enjoyable season for Alabama basketball.
Next up, they've got Arkansas State coming to I know it's Coleman Coliseum, but I think
the
it's more
Plaid
fun.
Palace.
No, I call it the Pacadome.
The Pacadome, very nice.
Yeah, instead of Pachyderm.
Yes,
the Pacadome.
Very good. I hadn't heard that before. I like that.
I'll give you Chrysler LeBaron, and I'll also give you the Pacadome.
Okay.
They've got Arkansas State Thursday night 7:00, and then next Monday McNeese State at 6:00. So we have our full slate of basketball beginning, and then getting ready because they go out to Las Vegas for Thanksgiving, don't they? Is that where they're
Thanksgiving
headed?
week? Yeah, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on Tuesday against Houston. That's a top 5 matchup. I think Wednesday is Rutgers, and then Saturday is to be determined. But that's obviously a made for TV, and that's a cool.
Hey, success has its benefits. When you start getting invited to these, like the Maui Invitationals, Las Vegas isn't bad, but
yeah, don't bring up the Maui. That was the COVID year where the Maui Invitational was in
Maui,
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh yeah,
and I couldn't even go there because they wouldn't let us travel. Then at that point, they wouldn't allow visiting. They wouldn't allow radio to come in. So, God, knowing then what we know now. Anyway, but it's going to. You're going to want to see this team. And I think it is Friday night, actually. They play Arkansas State
sorry.
at home. No, that's okay. But it's Friday night at home for that game. And I'll miss that one, unfortunately, because I'll be, already in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
But it's Arkansas State, coached by Brian Hodgson, who was, of course, part of Nate's first 4 years in Tuscaloosa. And with him at Buffalo as well. So this will be a good matchup, good test. They got to the championship game of their conference tournament last year. As good as UNCA was last year, Asheville made it. The last 2 years they had their conference player of the year. He's gone. Bama destroyed them, but they're still going to be a team that will be in the mix for the regular season and conference tournament. So it's not a bad team. You don't have any bad teams relative to their league on this Alabama schedule. He don't want to play a dog. He wants to play good teams that are going to challenge them, and they may not have gotten challenged in this one at the level, or it makes you think it's not at a high level, but that was a heck of a team that they destroyed from the get-go.
Well, and again, the opportunity to create depth, to be able to get guys these minutes right off the bat, because we get it. First of all, basketball, we know. crazy long season, injuries are going to happen, nagging injuries. So it's like, okay, if we can get as many guys out on the court now as possible.
Here's the scary thing for America, or everybody that's on Bama's schedule or potentially on the schedule. The guy who's as good as anybody, and I know Mark Sears is the rising potential national player of the year and the pick to win the SEC Player of the Year award. We know Mark is great, all of that. But Chris Youngblood's really stinking good, and two-time all-conference player of the year in the AAC last year when he was at South Florida, all-conference, and I think player of the year one season at Kennesaw State. Dude can play, and he's banged up. He won't be ready to go until probably mid-December.
Yeah.
You're adding not just a player, and you're not adding a role player. You're adding even more depth and talent and another weapon to a team that is loaded with those and is playing very unselfishly.
You know, it's funny, and we know that this is a new component of the game, particularly in basketball. You know, I've got a nephew who plays high school basketball. Those guys aren't going to big Division I schools. Those guys are going to smaller schools for the opportunity in 3 or 4 years to be able to come and be a role player at an Alabama or at another big Division I program.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another piece of that, too, that I saw it last year. I know it's not everywhere, but you've got guys that transfer for different reasons. You have guys... I
want to say Grant Nelson, who came. I mean, I'm not going to say he came out of nowhere, but he came out of nowhere for us, out of South Dakota.
Yeah, they knew he was going to. They knew he was a player, though.
Yeah,
and I think he is an example of. I was going to use, young man. I'm drawing a blank on him, but guys that aren't playing at Power Fives are transferring to mid majors because they want to play. Guys that are stars at mid majors are transferring. Aaron Estrada is the perfect example. I'll never forget the interview with Aaron on the floor in Los Angeles, confetti falling. We're going to go to the Final Four for the first time in Alabama basketball history. Aaron Estrada is standing there, headset on, I'm interviewing him. He said, Chris, it's not like I didn't get to play. He said, I started my career at Oregon. I go to Marist. He goes, I'm player of the year twice in that league. He goes, but I'm going to my last year, and I've never played in the NCAA tournament. He said, I came to Alabama because I wanted to play in the tournament. And he looked up at the confetti, and he goes, and now I'm going to the Final Four. That's what a Chris Youngblood is doing.
Yeah.
That's what Clifford Omori is doing. Clifford Omori turned down, rumor has it, I don't know this to be 100% fact, but there were reports that Clifford Omori turned down $1.8 million to go play at North Carolina. He'd been at Rutgers, which was a pretty good program.
Yeah.
He turns down $1.8 to play at North Carolina, came to Alabama for less money, because maybe half, because the system fit him better, and he was smart enough to know, if I can flourish in this system at a major program like Bama and play in the NCAA tournament, it's going to help my draft set. It's going to be worth far more than $900,000 to me the following year. Yeah, North Carolina is North Carolina, but the system fits me better, and I'm going to have a chance to make more a year from now than I'll make in one season in Chapel Hill. That's what guys think of now. That's why Grant Nelson left North Dakota State to come play in the Southeastern Conference. His two picks were Arkansas or Bama. Bama was a better fit.
Yeah.
That's where he is. That's what these guys are doing. Mark Sears came back for a fifth year at Alabama because he knew, I can make guaranteed NIL money if I go in the draft, don't get picked, or I go in the second round. I'm probably going to be back and forth, NBA, G League.
Make less.
I might make similar, but it's not guaranteed.
Right.
And, man, you better believe he remembered the story, knew the story 1 year prior of Charles Bediako, who went against most people's recommendations, put himself in the draft, got picked by San Antonio, not in the draft, but an immediate free agent the night of the second round of the draft. Plays, he's got a two-way contract, gets hurt playing G League, tears up his knee. They cut him. They're not they don't have to commit to him.
Right.
And he's got nothing. If he has that injury at Alabama, they're going to pay for his surgery. They're going to pay for all of the
he'll
rehab.
be taken care of.
He'd been taken care of, and he still would have had his guaranteed NIL money.
I know. It's, again, those are cautionary tales that you hope they take heed of. Okay, so next basketball game coming up.
Arkansas State.
I had the date wrong, but Arkansas
You're
State,
fine.
7 o'clock. And then, of course, if we're always looking for more Chris Stewart, because who isn't,
Yeah.
we can always find you at
list.
chrisstewart.online.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we got to thank Scott Forrester always for triaging the mess that we create here. Tim Melton, thank you so much for always being my emotional support person. Everything you need, you can find it at Cover Crimson because they've got everything you need. Basketball, football, you name it. And, of course, our daily next round guys who will take care of you every single morning. A big thanks to everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday night, big game in Death Valley. I'm Kelly Hunter. Chris Stewart.
Roll Tide.
Thanks, guys. See y'all next week.